Welcome back to my channel, Stay Hype, where I help you heighten your personal experience through my own experience on this earth. My name is Kristen, and we are continuing the series on shadow work. You guys know that I've been diving deep into shadow work on this channel because it's been so transformative in my life, and I really want to help you guys integrate these shadows so that you can show up a more authentic and confident version of yourself. So we talked about projection, we've talked about shame. So the next shadow that we are going to talk about today is anger, and how anger is a subconscious emotion if not expressed in a sacred way. And what I mean by sacred way is validating and holding space for our anger instead of allowing our anger to control us or shoving down our anger and suppressing it. So I had anger show up in my life in many different ways, but primarily in relationships, and not just romantic, but platonic. When someone would trigger me by getting close to an insecurity or calling me out on something that I did wrong, I would get so defensive and angry, and I did not want to hear it, and I would end up gaslighting people and invalidating people, or I would just be screaming and my face would change and I would be walking through the house and slamming doors. And I realized that I picked up so much of my father's anger growing up. My dad is explosive. He can go from 0 to 100 in a few seconds. And even though it scared me and I couldn't stand that, I ended up picking up some of that shadow from him. And so I could no longer blame him or ignore this. I had to hold myself accountable for the ways that I would show up in relationships. And I was so tired of my anger controlling me because it felt like it was something beyond me. It felt like as soon as someone would get mad at me, or do something, let me take that back. Let me roll it back. It would either really trigger me depending on who it was, and mostly in romantic relationships, I would get super triggered and just lash out. But in platonic relationships, I had a tendency to just shove the anger down because I was really worried about how people perceived me. I had the mask of being happy-go-lucky all the time. And so this anger did not fit the vibe, right? This anger did not fit the persona and the perception that I tried to put off into the world. And but the anger had to go somewhere, right? We can't just destroy energy. We either transfer it onto other people or we learn how to transmute it, which is what I want to teach you guys today in this video. But I was transferring it, and I was showing up in road rage, right? My anger was showing up in road rage, or in line at the grocery store if it was taking too long, immediately, just no patience. With children or my nieces, or something may happen and I just had zero patience, or other people's kids, just zero patience, right? Or I would get triggered when people did have more patience for their children, and their children were maybe screaming and yelling and being kids. I would just immediately be like, you need to get this kid in line. What are you doing? And it would invoke an emotion and anger in me. And I was just like, man, this is not how I want to show up, because I want to give the grace that I deserved growing up. I want to give the patience that I deserved growing up. And I don't want to be feeling like this shadow of anger is controlling me. I want to be more in control of my own emotions. So I'm going to read to you the shadow of anger really quick. It's just a quick little definition. And I want you to really see if this resonates with you. So anger is a powerful emotion that arises in response to perceived threats, injustices, or frustrations. It can manifest as irritability, resentment, or explosive outbursts. Unresolved anger can lead to aggression, hostility, and damaged relationships if not addressed. And something that stood out to me here is the perceived threats and injustices. And I think that so many of us have anger that is so valid due to the injustices or the threat that we endured in childhood or in past relationships. And I think that where we kind of have the block is that we don't feel allowed to be angry because we grew up with parents or caretakers that would not allow us to be angry. We weren't allowed to yell back. We weren't allowed to speak up. That was called talking back, just by speaking up and speaking your feelings. That was called disrespectful, by questioning or asking why, or saying, hey, this is not fair. I didn't really do this, but we're getting punished anyway. Why am I getting a whooping right now? I didn't even do this. Or why am I getting a whooping for doing this? I didn't even know that it was wrong, or I'm trying to learn, or why are you hitting me? And so that anger that is transferred to us has to go somewhere since it can't be destroyed. And so before we create sacred space and actually validate our anger, it comes out in misdirected ways, and we continue the transferring process generation after generation, which is why so many of us, especially my parents who are listening, are really trying to get a hold of this anger, because you can feel it, that how you're transferring it onto your children, and it's bringing up a lot of shame. Because if you're on my page, if you found my content, you definitely are going through a spiritual awakening and you are expanding your consciousness, and so you know that this is not the right way, and you're starting to recognize like the way that you're treating other people is the way that you were treated growing up, and you're healing from that treatment right now. So why would we continue to perpetuate the same abuse? And so the injustices that we felt, we have to start validating that from childhood, and not saying that you need to pick up the phone and call mom and dad. And some of you don't even have that option. You know, I know that some of our parents have already transitioned and we haven't really dealt with these emotions, but just because our parents transition doesn't mean that the feelings go away. And so we have to start giving that inner child that still lives within us a safe space to express themselves authentically. And if that means you yell and scream into a pillow, or you talk to a trusted friend or a therapist and you just really allow your emotions to release, that's okay. That's valid. That's what we need. We need you to start validating and understanding that this anger is not bad. We have to integrate this shadow by acknowledging why we're so angry. Why are you so angry? Because let's talk about it. You didn't have the dialogue growing up, but now as an adult, you do. You do have the dialogue. You do have people that are willing to listen. You do have coaches and therapists and counselors that you can talk to now. So there's, we don't have to continue holding everything in, and it's draining us. The resentment that we feel from childhood that we are not processing is not hurting the people that we have resentment towards. It's hurting us. It's taking up so much energy to stay mad and angry at someone versus processing it, validating it, and saying, you know what, I'm ready to let this go and just make peace so that I can move forward in my life with happiness. The amount of darkness that we cap ourselves out from feeling, so the amount of low vibrational feelings that we run from, right? We don't want to feel the anger and the sadness. We don't want to feel these things. When we cap ourselves out at feeling the low vibrational emotions, we are essentially capping ourselves out from feeling the high vibrational emotions, because the duality always exists within us. And when we are not acknowledging and honoring a part of ourselves, we cannot reach these new levels and heights that I know so many of you are striving to reach within yourself. That peace, that bliss, that euphoria, that high on life feeling. And we have these weights that are holding us down, and anger is a huge one in the collective that has been holding us down for so long. And I know that so many of you are exhausted and tired, and you also feel so discouraged from getting into romantic relationships because you have this anger shadow, and you know that if that partner says the wrong thing, you're going to explode. And so it causes so much anxiety within us when we don't speak our truth. It causes so much anxiety when we are trying to keep everything in this little box contained, and knowing that we're a ticking time bomb, often how we felt our parents were ticking time bombs. And so I hope that you can really see it, that we're becoming what we don't want because we're not addressing it. We're becoming our mothers and our fathers, and not that they don't have beautiful aspects that we picked up, but we're also becoming the toxic parts of them as well, because we are doing the same thing that they did and we're suppressing. So the way to integrate the shadow of anger is to stop suppressing and know that you are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to feel that rage, and we have to express it in a sacred space. And so I want to let you guys know that at the end of this month, on May 23rd, I am holding a virtual rage ceremony. It'll be 2 hours, and it's on the full moon in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign and my sign. But if you need a sacred space and community to just scream and yell and process and talk about your anger and your pain, I want to be that for you. I hold these full moon rituals every single month on the full moon. And this one just happens to be about releasing rage and anger. So if you need a safe space, I will link the the link in the description so that you can get a ticket and come release with like-minded individuals who are ready to elevate and move forward. You don't have to do this on your own. I also do one-on-one coaching if you don't feel safe or comfortable enough to release in front of a group of people. We can release together one-on-one, and I can link that coaching call as well. But my life has completely changed since integrating my anger. I didn't realize how angry I actually was. I had no idea how angry I actually was until I started really processing and validating my inner child and saying, wait, why wouldn't I be angry from this that happened? Why wouldn't I be angry from the abandonment? Why wouldn't I be angry from my sexual assault? Why wouldn't I be angry with this? I'm valid. If anybody outside of me experienced the things that I experienced, I would be shocked if they weren't angry. I would feel weird if they weren't angry. So your anger is valid, but where we are, getting it wrong is when we're misdirecting it on people who did nothing wrong to us, and we try to make them fit the mold for why we're angry, but it's not. It's so much deeper. It's not the fact that your parent or your partner didn't do the dishes. It's not the fact that your child spilled a glass of juice on the floor. That doesn't warrant the rage and the explosion that some of you guys admit, from these trivial things. But they're not trivial because they're hitting a much deeper trigger. Okay. And so I want to help you guys be able to show up in relationships more calm, show up in confrontation more calm, learning how to fight in love. Fights don't have to be hitting below the belt and physical and all these things that happen when we have unprocessed anger. So I hope that this helped you guys. I have a video on my 5A method, which I will also link in the description if you want more context on the 5 steps that it takes to actually integrate any of your shadows. And that is awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, accountability, and action. So I will link that video in the description as well if you want more context on how to do that with any of your shadows, not just anger. And I hope that you start to validate and love the anger, because that is a part of you, and your anger is worthy and valid. And you don't need to stay there forever, though. You don't need to stay there forever. At some point, we do have to make peace and move forward so that we can live a more fruitful and abundant life. So I hope this helped today. I will see you guys in the next video. Leave me a comment on the next shadow that you want me to talk about. I'm going to get through all of them, but let me know if there's something that you're really needing help with right now, and I will start working on the video soon. I love you guys. Bye.